Welcome to the Business Awareness Hour with Norman, the Awareness Guy. Now, let's start the show.
And a big good evening to everybody, and welcome to the Business Awareness Hour. I would be Norman Wasserman, also known as the Awareness Guy, and this lovely lady sitting right next to me, but she's in Florida and I'm in New York, is Linda Grace Farley. Linda, good evening.
Good evening, Norm. How are you?
All right, nice to see you. How the heck did I ever meet you?
NRG.
NRG. Oh, yeah, and then you were a guest.
Yep. And in fact, I was going through my notes because I try to purge some stuff. And yeah, we've known each other almost 2 years.
Yeah. Time flies.
Yeah, especially when you're having fun.
Yeah, and we certainly do have fun, and thanks to yourself and to all the people that tune in. And we got thousands of followers, and we thank everybody very, very much. We are so busy this year so far. I mean, like we're into almost June.
That's
right?
crazy, isn't it?
2-3 shows, each week, and it's just great. But that's because of the people that tune in. It's also like we have great guests.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic!
Tonight's guest is going to be speaking to us from Ohio. He owns a company called SACS Consulting and Security. And no, I do not know what SACS happens to mean yet, but I'm sure we're going to go find it. He is extremely well known on one of the major, if not one of the top 3 companies of its kind in the country. Maybe in the world. I'm not sure. We're going to go find out. And we're going to welcome to Tim Dimoff to the Business Awareness Hour. And I got to go for lingual lessons. Tim,
welcome. Tim. Hello, Tim.
Thank you for coming tonight. What's going on in Ohio?
Oh, right now, a lot of snow and a lot of cold and a lot of controversy in the sports arena with the Cleveland Browns and John Watson and the Cavaliers and it's playoffs in football. And, Ohio's a big sports state, so there's always discussion on sports.
Now, as you mentioned that gives me something to go and say regarding your business.
Yeah.
Because you're in the security business. All right, you know what? I'm not even going to go there. I'm going to let you explain to everybody. Let's start off with, what does SACS mean?
Well, we shorten it to SACS because it's quicker to say on the phone, in person, and in publicity. And, of course, I didn't know that lesson when I first started the company. But security and consulting services is what it could stand for, it should stand for, but we just shorten it. And we have a lot of DBA business, so it's SACS Consulting, SACS Security, SACS Investigations, SACS Training Center. So we kind of are one of those with a global name, and then we break it down into individual specific areas.
All right. You've been in the police world for it was 20 or so years, and then you decided to make a switch or retire from that and do your own kind of business. Why don't you got a lot of stories too, and if I don't keep my mouth closed, we're not going to go and hear those stories. And I know Linda has some questions for you as well. So let's start off about your business career.
Yeah, well, everybody always asks, where did it all start? Well, of course, let's go back to childhood. I grew up and I loved, the Lone Ranger and the Wild Wild West and all the lawmen. And I kept telling my parents, hey, I'm going to grow up and be a policeman. And, I did. I grew up. I went to college. I worked hard. I had great parents, great direction from a very solid family and support. Came right out of college, and 3 months later, I took a test. I finished high for Akron, Ohio Police Department. I finished 26 out of about 700-800 people.
Wow.
Got on, and away you go. I was the youngest in the academy, and I was so excited. And so I got on the police department, And I'm a sponge. I love knowledge. And I tell my kids and everybody today, my employees, knowledge is king. Knowledge will get you moving. Knowledge will help you fix things, correct things, and bounce back. And it goes on. So got on a police department, spent a couple years in patrol, loved doing that, got trained by my Blue Knight, who I always remembered and thank for guiding me, a young rookie. And right from there, then we have 520 officers on Akron, Ohio Police, and I applied for a job that was a high sensitive job called High Level Criminal Behavior Unit, and only 6 of us got it out of 520. And hey, I'm excited and blessed that I was one of the 6. Got some more training, did that for several years, and then someone said, "Hey, we're going to volunteer you to get on the SWAT team." And I go, "It doesn't sound like volunteer. It sounds like a soft suggestion." And yeah, I went on the SWAT team, did that for a couple years, and then they once again came and said, "We think you'd be really good, Tim. You like people, you intermingle with people. We're going to send you back to training, and your reward is you get to go down chimneys, indoors, windows, crawl in, and you get to confront the barricaded armed subject."
Let me ask you a question. I got to interrupt you just for 1 second. I watch on TV a lot of the police stories and SWAT. Is SWAT anything like what we see on TV?
Absolutely. They capture it very well. They keep capturing it better the more they do it. What you see is actually what happens. They are trained like robots. There is not one person or one thing they do that is not trained and repetitively trained, and they work as a unit, and you can see that on TV. And that's what it's become, because it's just simply highly dangerous. And when I was doing the SWAT, we weren't to the level of the training that they have today, and today's training is fantastic. But once again, I would go in on barricaded armed subjects, hostage negotiation stuff, and confront individuals. And people say, "Well, you have a gun, you have this and that." You know what? Your brain is your best tool in law enforcement.
Sure.
And I got extensive psychological training. And as I got more experience, I got better at talking to people and convincing them to go the right route of surrendering and coming out of those situations and releasing hostages. But I also had confrontations. I had injuries. I had close calls. And I'll just say it right now. If it wasn't for God and my angels, we wouldn't be having this interview. And I know there's a bunch of different religions and there's discussion, but spirituality, if you don't believe in it, just spend 5 minutes with me on the phone, and I think I might change your mind. And everybody's obviously entitled to their opinions, but that became an important part of what I was doing. And there. So got out of the SWAT, and I thought, okay, I'm done with doing things dangerous. They said, "No, we're going to have you go and work undercover narcotics, multi-jurisdictional." And I went in and deep undercover for 5 years, and did that, came out, took over the narcotics unit, did multi high level cases. And in the end, I got more training, more experience, more knowledge, more blessings, more experience. On top of that, I had 11 injuries, 1 year in rehab. And after 20 years, my wife said, "Hey, I don't know if I can take enough of worrying about you." Right. And I said, "Okay." And I was able, obviously, to retire. I was on the Akron Police and then also on the Federal Task Force.
Yeah, you did something with Canada. How'd you get this award from Canada?
Well, what had happened is first, when I was on the Akron Police Department, I developed some new computers came out. I mean, that's going back because I'm older, when the computers first came out, you remember the green screen computers?
Yeah.
You had to write like a code to make the print go to the next paragraph or the next sentence. It wasn't like we are today, cut and paste. It was coded. But I took the computer and narcotics, we got the training on the computers first. So I developed nothing more simply than a cut and paste program. And I developed a program that helped us with search warrants. Search warrants were very tedious. We had to use typewriters and blue carbon copy paper. So you got to be at least 50 or older to understand what I'm saying. But anyway, I took search warrants from a 3-week ordeal down to a 3-hour ordeal, and I increased the income by using search warrants for the city of Akron from $250,000 to $3 million a year, which was huge. And then I developed some other programs. And then I got an idea. I'm going to write a book for parents on how to identify substance abuse and drugs in their kids. And the schools started buying my book, and I was not an author. I got turned down by 25 different publishers. So I went to a place called Kinko's that was on every college campus. And I said, can you put this book together? I got the material. Oh, we'll design a cover. We'll put the book, the chapters, we'll copyright. And, the book wasn't a masterpiece, but it was a book, And a guy told me, hey, look, Tim, 1% of 1% write books. You are now a proud member of that group. And I published a book and I got publicity, and now I didn't make a lot of money on it, but it was more of a personal accomplishment. And then from the book and from the search warrants, and then I got a case handed down to me from the FBI. It turned out to be a $4.5 million case, the largest case in Ohio history.
What was it about?
And so with that, all of that, the Attorney General nominated me for Policeman of the Year for the state of Ohio. I got it. They only give it to 1 cop a year for the entire state. I mean, I'm very proud of that. I'm humble, but I'm proud. So 2 years after the Policeman of the Year, all that information got out to the International Narcotics Association. And in Montreal, Canada, 2 to 3 years after that, I accepted the International Narcotic Officer of the Year award. And once again, it was just a fantastic feeling. And I owe it all to my roots, to the people that raised me and trained me and had confidence in me.
Can we go back for a second? I have here SWAT. I wanted to ask you a question. Norm was saying about the TV show. When you were working SWAT versus now in today's environment, how's that in comparison?
Well, the equipment today is so much better. The officers are fully geared up with shields and helmets and equipment and night vision and lights and just a tremendous and the way they work as a unit is so much more synchronized today than it was before. But it has to be, because the criminals today are so much more advanced in the guns and the firepower and the techniques. And the other problem is you got terrorists that the SWAT team's going up against. And these guys are much more sophisticated also. So it's just, you fight fire with fire. As the criminals increase their methods, we improved ours and vice versa. And that's true across the board in all law enforcement and military operations. I mean, look at the Ukraine war. They're using drones. We didn't have drones 20 years ago, but today we have them and we can use them. And we can use them in SWAT incidences. We can send a drone into a building to see what's going on in there instead of a human who might get hurt or killed. Wow. So, we change with the times.
Yeah. So the intensity has increased, right?
Absolutely.
So and the other one I wanted to ask you about or just make a comment about, was your book, right? Sometimes it's not about the money, right, Tim? Because the parents who read that book may have saved their children's life. That is that intangible stuff that you don't see. So just the fact that you came together to create that book, oh, I mean, my hat's off to you, because there's a lot of parents out there that are blessing you for providing that book.
Even if it's just one parent,
Exactly.
Yeah.
just
Exactly.
one person that you help save.
If you change or affect one person in your life, you've taken a step that many people haven't. And
Yes.
and that one person can turn into many more, which for me it did happen that way. And yeah, you're right. I never made any large amount of money on the book, but I was so proud. My parents were proud, my friends, my police department, and we started supplying the book to schools.
Yeah.
And I remember schools all over the United States were asking for hundreds of copies because they wanted to give it to bus drivers and teachers and administrators, and it kind of snowballed. And
Yeah.
one unique story, I got turned down by 25 publishers. 2 years after I self-published a book, a publisher out of New York, Facts on File, called me and said, "Mr. Dimoff, we made a mistake. We should have went with you. We want to hire you to write another book, and we're going to give you a writer, and we're going to take care of all the logistics. We just want to drain your brain." And I wrote another book with them. So it was kind
Very,
of cool
How
to
many books have
come
you written?
back and get.
it's nice how it worked out.
And how many books have you written?
Well, I've contributed to a total of 6 books. I've written 3 books fully myself.
And how do people get these books if they want to? Do they let's put up your phone number and contact information.
Sure. Yeah.
If
They
you want to reach Tim Dimoff, his phone number is 330-255-1101. That's 330-255-1101.
Yep. And they can go to Amazon, just put Tim Dimoff in there, and it'll put up some books that I've written, or they can contact us. We'll be glad to do it. We're excited to help anybody anywhere. And we've had the ability, once again, if I didn't have all that training and education, I couldn't do what I do today. And a lot of what I do today is we help people. And if they don't have money, that doesn't matter to us. We're giving back. When you're blessed, you give back.
Now, Tim, you had a story. We were talking about the parents and the drugs and stuff, but you had a story where you actually helped somebody. Probably one of many, but you quoted it in your intake. The boy that you helped out with the judge. Would you like to share?
This is interesting.
Well, yeah, it's kind of weird. I always attach things to quotes and sayings that we grew up around, but givers get, and I tell people, you give because it's the heart and soul and the spirit of doing it right.
Yes.
But once again, law of attraction of positive, givers get. And I had a gentleman that I arrested for narcotics, drug dealing. And I interviewed him. I talked to him. I prosecuted him. He ended up going to jail for a short period of time. But when I talked to him, I could see he was inside. He was a good person, and maybe got some misdirection or got trapped in alcohol and drugs. And I talked to him quite a bit. And I told him, I said, "You have the ability to turn your life around." And he said, "I really want to." And you could tell he meant it. And I said, "I'm going to help you. And I'm going to help you get that life turned around." And long story short, I went to the judge, explained to him, and said, he needs rehab in this. And judge, this is an opportunity for everybody to work together to help this young man. Now, he ended up in going to jail, but the judge said, based on what Detective Dimoff is saying here, we're going to shorten your sentence, but it's going to be a contingency that you get help and that you do this and you get community involvement. Long story short, that's what he did. And when he got out of jail, we stayed in touch. We went to breakfast and lunch together, and I would call him and keep an eyeball on him, and what are you doing, and help him get a job, this and that.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
about a year and a half later, I get a call from a very well-to-do millionaire who owns a hotel here in Akron, Ohio. And he says, hey, I'd like you to come over. I want to talk to you about your human resource services and your security. And I go over and talk to him. And he says, yeah, I own 3 hotels here, and I'd like you to, help us. And I'd like you to give me a proposal. I'd like to sign a contract with you. So I went through all this and came back to this guy, met with him a couple times. The third time I met with him, he signed the agreement, and it was a nice contract. And when he got done, he put his pen down, looked at me, and he said, I want you to know why I initially called you, and I want to thank you. And I said, I'm lost. What are you talking about?
Well, I know where this is going.
He said, you know this young man by the name of blah, blah, blah? And I said, well, yeah, I know him. He said, yeah, you arrested him, but you saw something. You took your time and effort, asking for nothing in return. And you helped my nephew. He's my sister's son. And I just want to say thanks. And signing this contract is one way to say thanks. But also, Tim, I also think your services are great, but I'd rather give my contract, my money, to someone that does good and who helped my family. And he goes, thank you. And I always thought, wow, I mean,
Yeah.
wow.
That is a wow. That's a huge wow.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's like your book. You help one person. Look what you did for this young man. That's sensational. That.
And in the course of the day, you have no idea.
And you got rewarded.
Yeah.
And the man upstairs was watching. And this was payback. This is what you're talking before about the religious aspect of this.
Mhm.
You don't do it with that intent. You do it because it's in you.
Yes.
But it turns out that's wonderful stuff. I just a side note. I've been doing concerts for 36 years, and I never really. I'm very happy with what I do because I help charities. All my concerts are for charities. 36 years of traveling around and doing shows. Now, 3 weeks ago, I did a show, and I'm on stage, I'm backstage, and I just start to cry. And this true story because it happened the last 2 weeks. And there's a lot of I work with a lot of disability organizations, and there are these kids dancing in the aisles, and I'm saying, I did this. I'm making these kids feel it does. Forget, like you said, forget the money. It doesn't get any better than that. Now, I haven't talked about that. This is the perfect opportunity. This has been bottled up inside of me for a long time. But that's what happens. That's what happens. So, people like yourself are a blessing.
That's fantastic. We help the Wounded Warrior program. We provide free security, guidance, and everything.
Let's talk about you, but I'm going to interrupt. Let's jump in now to really why we're here. Now, we already found out a little bit about you and your history and what got you to where you are. Now we're there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and before we take our break, which is going to be in about 5 to 6 minutes, let's get you started. We discussed what SACS happens to be. How did you start it? Well,
I decided to retire. I went to my wife and I said, I'm going to retire, honey. And she said, okay. She said, what are you going to do? And I said, oh, I'm going to chase the American dream. And I said, I'm going to start my own business. And my wife looks at me and goes, here we go again. And she said, you got my full support, but why would I think you'd do anything different?
Right.
And you know what? I'm a great example of the proverbial start in my basement, one phone, one line, and start all over again. And you know what my strength was? My strength was what I learned on the police department was making relationships, contacts with people is how you build your reputation and your success. And I started all over again in the basement. And then I started going to chambers and safety councils and other professional groups. And I started something that's on the first page of my book that's called The You in Business. And the first page in bold letters, it says, meet people, meet people, meet people, the secret sauce. And that's what I started doing. And I grew the company to what it is today.
Okay, we're going to talk. I want a clarification on that. You started off one person. Number one, how long has your business been in existence?
Well, we've been in official existence now for 40 years. Started in 1994. That's 30 years. Then there you go. So about 30 years.
Okay, so you're doing this 30 years. You started off with a phone, like you said, in the basement, and it wasn't a wireless phone, I'm sure. And
Nope.
you had to stick. You couldn't pace the ground as you were talking. And now, after 30 years, how many employees do you have? What kind of security do you do? Some events that you cover. Tell everybody.
Sure. We are now in downtown Akron in a large complex that used to be the world headquarters for BF Goodrich, building tires, Akron, the rubber capital of the world. And we are now the largest ex-military and ex-law enforcement security company in Ohio. We're not the largest security, but the largest ex-military law enforcement, because that's our niche. High-level guys, previously trained, etc. And we're the largest in Ohio, and we're 85 people strong.
Wow.
And we're also have regional directors, and we cover all 50 states, and we have 42 partnerships throughout the United States. We cover any state of all 50 states and can respond to any tragedy situation within 24 hours. So we went from the basement to all over Ohio to national, and we have a very unique reputation for what we do.
Okay, so your services, if you could elaborate
Sure.
on those.
Our services first, security. We do temporary security, emergency security, and regular security. If a company, school, church, or business wants a higher level of security, and it's a level of comparable to law enforcement level, because our people are ex-military and law enforcement. So we do all levels, all types of security, physical security. We do all types of investigations. We have a human resource division. We do a lot of training. So we do the HR training, sexual harassment, discrimination. But on the security side, we're one of the top 10 in the country on active shooter training. And we have a unique program that's unique to us that we do across the country, big demand. It's called Diffusing and Dealing with Difficult People. You can imagine in today's world how many companies and organizations want that training and need it. So training, HR, security, investigations. We do physical security analysis, and then we do specialized security. It could be electronic debugging, could be tracking financial assets down. It could be special details. We've done Republican conventions. We've done presidential debates. We work with the feds because they always need outside support services. They take care of the inner circle. We take care of the outer circle. And we specialize also with a very large research team, and we're constantly researching aggressive behavior, trends, terrorism, and then we're developing training for law enforcement and the general public, corporations and schools and churches. So
you mentioned something about the Republican convention. How
Yes.
how many man hours? How many people were involved in that? And when you need extra people, and there are times that not all of your 85 employees are former police or Army, SWAT, or whatever it may be. You have administrative people and so on. So how do you get the additional people, and how many people did you have at the convention?
At the convention, we had about 45 people that were working. We took care of all the security and escorts when dignitaries or anybody would come out of what we call the cocoon. That's the security zone that's protected
Mhm.
by the feds. When they reach the edge of the security cocoon, the feds are not authorized to go beyond the cement and the fencing. They would hand those people, dignitaries and candidates or anybody, off to us, and then we would have armed people in VIP executive protection handling them, and then we'd bring them back. A lot of them were requested to go give a presentation or a talk somewhere, and then we'd bring them back. But we had about 45. And in answer to your question, all over the United States and Ohio, when we need additional people, I have other security companies that have that have military and law enforcement personnel, and we tap into them if we need additional.
Mm.
But we keep our level at a very high level.
Are you involved with the inauguration at all coming up?
We are not involved in the inauguration, but we were involved in providing security at the presidential debates that took place at Case Western Reserve here up in Cleveland, about a year and a half ago. And anytime the dignitaries or the debates or the candidates, all the Democrat, all the Republican candidates visited, Northeastern Ohio, we ended up being part of their security contingency. Also, we're taking care of uh, like professional sport teams,
Mm.
and we're taking care of the security for them. We're doing the debugging for all the security or the sports teams for that. And now, unfortunately, this recent CEO got shot and killed.
Yeah, what's up with that?
Uh, what's up with that is this gentleman was disgruntled, was upset, and once again, these people that shoot people like this, they go to the internet, they get influenced by either the terrorism or the hate groups that are out there, and they become radicalized because mentally they're vulnerable, and
Mhm.
all they got to do is feed them some negative direction, and then all of a sudden they take off with it. But because the CEO was shot and killed, our demand for C-level security, VIP executive protection has gone up tenfold, and we're actually expanding our executive protection detail because of that. Because now that the seed has been planted, the copycats are coming,
Oh, sure.
just like the school shootings. And so
Always it does. Always happens that way.
we research the trends on the private side. We're one of the most detailed um, researchers on the private side. We supply a lot of information to the media, to the corporations, schools, churches. I update police departments on lone wolf terrorism trends, aggressive behavior. We're just that's our hook. We
Mhm.
understand that ugly world and the psychology of what's behind it. Once
Mhm.
again, if I didn't get all that training, I was on the police department, I wouldn't have known what direction to take
Right.
our team.
Have
So
you ever worked in New York, in Manhattan, or Long Island?
we've worked in just about probably out of 50 states, say 35, but definitely East Coast. We've been all up and down the East Coast.
All
Wow.
right, we're going to take a short break now, but I want people also to get your phone number again, and if you have any possible need for protection and security, you got to give Tim a call. I mean, the worst thing that can happen is it doesn't work, but give Tim a call at 330-255-1101. That's 330-255-1101. Or you can send him an email at info@sacsconsulting.com. All right, that's great. And we're going to ask Chris, our tech, to please let me make my payment for tonight. All right. Let's go and see if I can raise some money. Let's go. Hit it, Chris.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Friend Entertainment USA. My name is Norman Wasserman. I am also known as the Music Man. Let me just tell you a little bit about Friend Entertainment. We put on concerts for charities, and we do that everywhere from New York to Las Vegas. We do R&B, Motown, rock and roll, jazz, whatever it is that you wish. Friend Entertainment will deliver the best of the best for you and your charity. Here are some of the names of the talent that have performed with us on our stage. Stevie Wonder, Tina Turner, The Temptations, Earth, Wind and Fire, the one and only ELO, Elton John himself, Kool and the Gang, and the fabulous Donna Summer. Go to our website, friendentusa.com. That's www.friendentusa.com, or feel free to call us at 631-698-9696. 631-698-9696, and we'll see you at the next show. 9696, and we'll see you at the next show.
I guess you're going to see somebody looking for a job pretty soon if we don't fix that commercial a little bit.
Hey, Norm, where'd you go?
He always flips the coin. Okay. One day we'll get that. I know when I don't send the check in. That's when it'll happen. I get that. Anyway, if you're interested in
Norm, your camera's off, Norm.
Okay.
I can't see you.
That could be a good thing. If you're interested in getting some information about Friend Entertainment and what it is that we do to help your charity, please give me a buzz at 631-698-9696. That's 631-698-9696. As well as if you're interested in being on the Business Awareness Hour and be interviewed and have a conversation like Tim is having right now, we would welcome it. And I thank you very much. Tim, you just said that you supply your services all around the country. Do you ever do anything internationally?
We've done some stuff in Canada and Mexico. We've had some requests recently that we're working on. It's going to take us over in the Middle East region, and we have former federal, international, federal agents that worked internationally that we employ and partner with for those special details. We also we track financial assets for high-level divorces, for lawsuits, for breakups and investment deal. But on the investment investigations, absolutely takes us, into like Belize and the Cayman Islands and other places that they invest the money. So we do work internationally on the financial asset tracking cases.
Who was a question? I wanted to, hey, Norm, can you touch your screen?
Did I touch the screen?
Yeah, so we could see your pretty face.
You mean that one? That face?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. The thing that came to mind was active shooters. Has the school system contracted with you? I mean, or do you teach? Is this
what we do?
Yeah.
First thing we do for schools, but we do for churches and businesses and nonprofits. We go in and do what is called a physical security analysis. We look at every single thing in that building that's physical: outside, lights, parking, entrances, electronics, alarms, cameras, windows, vulnerability of windows. So we're looking extensively and conducting an overall physical security analysis. We come back with a booklet and we say, here's your strengths, here's your weaknesses, here's the things you need to do in the next couple of years. Here's the things you need to do within 5 years. So we really identify the whole thing. In the end, we help make that location, school, church, business, a Fort Knox without looking like Fort Knox. Then after that, we put an emergency action plan together. We give them a game plan. What do you do if something bad happens? Well, under stress, you can't sit and try to decide what to do. You already have to know what to do in stressful situations, or you will fail to do the proper thing because panic and nervousness and anxiety and blockage mentally. That's why police train yearly on everything. You know, it's called muscle memory. So we then do the emergency action plan. And then the last thing, we do training. And the two big ones for us is active shooter, recognizing it, responding to it, and doing it. What do I do? And then also diffusing and dealing with difficult people. And so it's sort of a three-piece, physical security, emergency action plan, and training for all your personnel. That is one of our busiest divisions besides our security and investigations. We just do a ton of physical security analysis.
Does the state government and or the federal government have a special program for schools that really can't afford, but that are in not so nice neighborhoods?
Oh yeah, the government has plenty of, I'll call it canned type of programs that are, that are very adequate. The government, what they're doing now, which is even better, is they're offering up money, grants for schools, churches, and businesses to hire companies such as mine and others that can provide those tools instead of the government trying to come in and do something that, and I don't want to say they're not qualified, but there's better people on the private side. And the government has really come a long way in providing. You look at schools, and they can get a lot of grant money every year for safety and security programs. So
that's nice you're saying that, Tim, because you got to wonder how many schools, right, Norm, really know about this.
I mean, I'm thinking now because I do so many concerts in schools.
Exactly.
Over the 36 years. Actually, that's because of economics. I make that one of the better tools for put people in the seats.
Federal government has grants, states have grants, and then there's individual foundations. If you have a good grant writer, researcher, there's foundations that will only give money to specific causes, such as schools for security, nonprofits, homeless shelters for security. And there's a lot of entities that are missing the boat on that.
There is one every year they look for, there's 4 categories, and I'm one of their grant reviewers, but they're looking for change from a society perspective, from economic, the whole 9 yards. And all these different organizations can go in and say, okay, this is my proposal for, say, we have a crime area and we want to change that. So how can we address that? So they write these proposals, but hardly anybody knows about it.
Right.
Unless you're in the inn and you hear about that. So do you have like a blog or like a reference thing on your website for that?
Well, I have the physical security analysis summaries and the emergency action plan. And people, when they apply for these grants, they have to have some sort of evaluation that points out their weaknesses.
Sure.
So I tell them, we'll come in and do a physical security analysis for X amount of money. You take our booklet and you just put a cover on it on the application and it's done. We dissect all the strengths and weaknesses of that school. The school can turn around, fill in the blank. Hey, we need X amount of money to fix these inefficiencies that are already outlined in this analysis done by this national company. So Yeah, our physical security analysis, we're busy with it because people need it. But the other thing is, it's the tool to them getting their money. You
Sure,
know,
sure.
because
And that's nice. That's nice for our audience to hear, right,
yeah,
Tim and Norm, because there's a lot of information out there, but
Oh, absolutely. It's trying to, like you said, though, Lynn. You got to find it.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
there's a lot of money every year from the federal and state that does not get used for safety and security because the
what a
people
shame.
think it's such a big headache and they don't know where to start and they don't have no ability to identify their weaknesses, and we keep telling them we'll do the hard plowing for you.
if you don't do it now, you may have a problem that's not going to look very good.
I love this. All of a sudden, my head's going. All these thoughts, because that would be perfect. Even if you had a group of teachers who would come together, and you could be on your Zoom out of Ohio and just doing a broadcast to all the teachers. Hey, we understand that you're in wherever, and you have a concern with all this terrorism or
Yeah.
whatever, right? So I think people need to start looking. And I could appreciate they don't know where to go, so they shut down.
Yep.
Right? Because the cranium hasn't, that neural pathway hasn't been developed. But there's organizations out there, and maybe it's just a matter of getting them all together again, so that they can help them.
Well, we tell them we can do the hard part. All you got to do is fill in the blanks of name, address, what you want, where you are. You don't have to do the meat and potatoes. We'll do that for you. And it works really well for the ones that listen.
Yeah. The other question I had was, you see they label it terrorism or it's just crime in general, but the crime is upgraded a little bit from just shooting and stuff that, blow up stuff, or put things on fire and such. The one thing that comes to mind is your organization looking at terrorism in general?
Yeah, we do. We research terrorism, lone wolf, influence of terrorism, and you talk about terrorism, and then you got to talk about extreme groups, hate
Sure,
groups,
sure.
and those are domestic terrorism, and then you have international terrorism. But in answer to your question, yeah, it's a very important thing, and we're researching it constantly because things that go on. Let's look at New Orleans recently,
Mm-hmm.
and the driver in Las Vegas. Now,
Yeah.
those were two military, highly trained individuals that served their country well and were trained well. And they went by the wayside because of lots of issues that came on in their life. And they got influenced by terrorist extremist groups on the internet
Mm-hmm.
and converted because of their weakness in their mental capacities
Sure.
and things going on in their life. I won't get into the details, but bottom line is the extremists and the terrorism influence on them is what caused them to do what they did, and we have to be aware of that. And they're not the end of more of that happening.
Right.
It that's just the tip of the iceberg. Once they did it, it triggers others to say, I want to be like them. I want to go down a hero,
Yes.
and
Yes.
That doesn't make you a hero.
well, to them, they're a hero, and both of them pre-planned to carry out their event and guaranteed themselves they both were going to die doing it.
Have you
Well,
ever been approached to
that's
be? I'm sure the end. I think I know the ends. I shouldn't say I'm sure. To be a police commissioner of a major city.
No, I've been
I don't
approached.
believe that.
Now, I've been approached to take over major law enforcement, kind of like special, what do you want to call it? Special details, or task force or things like that. But I almost did take one towards the end of my career, but I decided I think I can do more on the private side instead of being restricted on the government side.
The story that you told before about the young man that you helped along the way must have been a thrilling situation when the other gentleman said, "He's my nephew."
Yeah.
And that probably shocked the heck out of you. And I'm sure you didn't know what to say at that particular time. Have you ever had other stories like that you could possibly share?
Well, I've had, you know, uh, numerous situations, and it's funny, but in all my law enforcement career, um, once again, I tell people it's spiritually driven, that God hooks me up with some individual and something clicks. And it's like someone's whispering in my ear, and
Yeah.
I told people I was in some really tough situations, and there were a couple of them I was working deep undercover, and I'm sitting in a living room ready to buy $500,000 worth of drugs, and I'm sitting in a chair in the living room with four other drug dealers, and a voice whispers in my ear, "Get out, leave now." And I turn to my right, there ain't nobody there. And then I hear, "Get out." And I thought, this ain't comfortable. I made some excuse up, and I walked out. The next day, we had one of the drug dealers there that was working for us um, contact me and said, "It's a good thing you left last night." And I go, "Yeah, maybe, they didn't." He goes, "No, it's a good thing you left." He said, "The guy 2 seats away from me?" He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "He was going to shoot and kill you and take your money."
Oh
Oh,
my.
shit.
And I sit there and I go, "What?" He goes, "No, he was going to shoot and kill you. They wanted your money. They didn't want to give you drugs for it." And, and you don't know. That's the problem with undercover. Does the money become bigger than the deal?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you have to be careful. That's why a lot of times we go into those situations. I won't get into it, but I come in and I go, "Yeah, let me see the dope. I have the money, but it's not with me.
Always. Yeah.
We got to go down the street. There's another person there that has the money, because you got to protect yourself. I don't know these people.
Right.
And if they're involved in a crime like that, chances are good, and they do the same thing. Well, I don't have all the dope here. Well, I understand that. But anyway,
You must have a hard time because you don't look anything like a drug dealer.
well, let me tell you, when I had dark hair, long hair, wore a bandana, uh, I looked a little better. But I will tell you, in today's world, a white guy, a black guy, a Mexican, a female, a male, a young, an old, anybody can buy drugs, bazookas, guns, whatever you want, anywhere you want to buy it, as long as you got money. There is no differentiation. And and even when I was working narcotics, I'd have 50, 60, 70-year-old people buying dope and selling dope. And at first, being a younger guy, I thought, what the heck? That
Yeah.
old man selling dope,
Oh
Well,
yeah.
he'd been selling dope for 20 years and bragging about it, Probably he got arrested once or twice, did a couple years, but the money was good,
Yeah.
And you want to hear something funny? Here I am working narcotics, arresting and sending people to jail for selling marijuana, of course, large quantities. Now today, my company, we provide all the security detail for all the marijuana shops in, not all of them, but a lot of them in Ohio that cultivate it, package
Yes.
it, and sell it in large quantities that are worth thousands of dollars and quarter million. And I go to people, I used to arrest people for this. Now
Yeah.
I'm providing their security
Protection.
for it, and you know,
It's crazy.
yeah,
It's something that I want you to talk about. And it's in the information that you had sent to us in the profile. And as we get closer to the hour, and believe it or not, the hour is almost here.
Yeah.
I want to know about your silent angels.
yeah. Um, Over the years, as I said, givers get, and my mom always taught me you give back a percentage of your gain, and she'd go play bingo, and me and my brother couldn't figure out that lady wins bingo all the time, but when she'd come home, she'd hand me $5 and hand my brother $5 and hand my dad $5, and she would share it. And then she was a teacher, and she would use the money to buy kids stuff that they couldn't afford to buy, and she just drilled it in us.
Mhm.
And I always said, when I get to the point where, I make some profits and that, I need to give it back. So I created a thing called Silent Angels, and Silent Angel it's not a nonprofit. It's just that I take profits from my company every year, and I have feelers or people out there, and I go, when you see good people who run into problems,
Mhm.
let's work together to give them a break. And so I'd have people call me and say, "Hey, I got a next door neighbor. She has 3 kids. She's single. Her stove just went out. She needs a new stove. She's debating whether to feed her kids or buy a new stove." And I said, she should feed her kids. I said, would she mind if I came over and talked to her? And I would go, and we still do it, talk to them. And, you can talk to people and find out where they're at.
Mhm.
And she would explain. And I said, later this week, I'll have someone call you, and we're going to, deliver you a stove. And I got to be honest with you. She cried, I cry. And I've cried so much because it's tears of joy that, oh my
Mhm.
God, this person doesn't, they're just not thankful. They're just devastated in a positive way, like something that a lot of people just never experience. I had another lady that her son was sleeping on the floor in the bedroom. I went over there, blankets and pillows on the floor, 3 plastic, laundry baskets. I go, what are those? She said, I'm sorry, Mr. Dimoff, but that's his dresser. Those are his drawers. I put his clothes in 3 different baskets. You know, and I said to her, well, Silent Angels has a rule. And she says, what's that? I go, no kid sleeps on the floor, you know? And I said, within a week or so, we'll be calling you. And we got the little boy a bed, a mattress, a box spring, a headboard, a dresser, a
Mhm.
nightstand. And you know, she calls me back a couple weeks later and says, I just got to tell you, my son invited his friend over for the first time,
Oh.
you know, because,
Mentally, you know what you did for that young man?
oh, and she told me he was ashamed to have his friend come
Of
over because
course.
he didn't have a bed, you know. Um, it tears me up as I talk to you now, but that's Silent Angel. That's what it is. It's giving back. It's not a write off. It's a write up
Yes.
of
Good for you.
spirituality.
Good for
Um,
you.
you know, I'm not going to conquer the world, but I sure do want to conquer a piece of it.
Well,
You
you
know,
conquered me.
And you're doing an excellent job,
And I'm
Tim.
sure the followers that are on watching this show and listening to this show tonight are going to make it all worthwhile.
Yeah.
I think not just that you'll get business from them, but you've showed what life is really all about and what one can do.
Absolutely.
That's great, and I thank you so much for being on the show here this evening. And I wish we have more to talk about, but
Yes.
you're going to get stuck coming back here, buddy.
We'll just have to have part 2
There
with
you go.
Norma and Linda.
Do you have any events coming up? Anything that you're going to be advertising your business? Or do you give any lectures or security conversations that people can get in touch with?
Well, we don't have anything right off the top. It's a new year. We're planning a lot of cool things, and I have
Cool, I'll do a concert for you.
I have a thing called a hit list, and what it is if anybody wants to hear some radio interviews and some research and some interesting stories or topics, I have a hit list. If they send me their email, I'll put them on the hit list, and we sprinkle in stories and information every so often. And it's people love it because I get asked a lot of crazy questions, important questions, and I provide commentary, but it's snippets, it's small stuff.
We're going to give you your performance tonight, your conversation, your story.
This will be going out to all my channels nationally. So we're going to push this podcast out big time. So it'll be.
Appreciate that, and thank you so much for being here, Tim. You're a remarkable man who's done some great things, and God is watching you. It's good stuff. Just stay there for a while. With Linda and I are just going to wrap up. Whoa. Now that's a guy that's accomplished a lot of stuff.
Yes, indeed.
You think that, what you've done in your life and whatever that what I've done, and I think I've done some pretty good stuff, doesn't compare to what Tim has done and the people that he helps.
Everybody has a calling, and we do it in our own way. And his is he just continues to give back. So, but that's what life's all about. You become the subject matter expert, and look what he's doing.
Yeah. We got another expert coming on next week too. We won't get into it now because we want everybody to come. We're going to send out a save the date for everybody anyway. And thank you so much for tuning in and staying with us for the hour. Lynn, as always, love you. And we'll see everybody